like climbing a ladder in the middle of a room which has probably like 6-meter ceilings while holding an Osmo. This is not the easiest thing to do.
I'm in one of the oldest buildings in Singapore, and I'm climbing into a space that's been closed off to the public for decades.
A bit shaky, huh?
Over the past 125 years, only a handful of people have gone up here. I have no idea what awaits me.
Oh wow, look at this place. It's amazing.
In the 19th century, people from around the world came to Singapore seeking new fortunes. They built landmarks and created spaces for commerce, governance, and community. Over the decades, many of these structures disappeared. The few that remain lived through vastly different lifetimes, bearing the layers of history etched into their colonial walls.
Teutonia Club was confiscated because of World War I.
There were at least 2 trials conducted there on the fields of the hotel under a tent. And one of the defendants was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment and the other to 7 years imprisonment.
I'm digging into the history of Singapore's community spaces. In the 19th century, key hubs like Chinatown, Kampong Glam, and the Civic District buzzed with activities centered around the waterfront. But in the 1900s, development began shifting inland to an area we know well today, Orchard Road. Once nothing but plantations and farms, the street transformed completely over time. And this is one of the few compounds that has withstood the test of time. It might be sprawling now, but it was only a structure with one lone tower 125 years ago. This tower is really the foundation of what we've come to know today as Goodwood Park Hotel. This is one of the oldest and most unique hotels in Singapore. In the early 20th century, most buildings here were modest 2- or 3-story structures, shophouses, go-downs, and bungalows. But amidst them, Goodwood's tower stood out as an extraordinary and unconventional construction for its time. I've discovered that the tower's groundbreaking design was done by Swan and McLaren. Established in 1892, the firm is Singapore's oldest architectural practice that is responsible for many of the country's iconic heritage buildings. Why build something so grand and so detailed in a time when most buildings were very simple? What is the story behind this? Perhaps Swan and McLaren's current CEO, Chai Boon, can tell me more. He explains that the original 1,873 square meter building completed in 1900 was designed with a central tower and 2 flanking wings. This design was unique, even amongst Swan and McLaren's works of the era.
In 1895, John Bidwell, one of the professionally trained architects, joined the firm. He was quite revolutionary at that time.
Chai Boon takes me on a tour of the hotel, highlighting Bidwell's design in detail to help me understand what made it so remarkable for its time.
So, as you can see from this original design by John Bidwell, the sketch, there are verandas along the side. It allows for cross ventilation so that the window can be fully open. And the ground actually very much influenced by the Anglo-Indian style at that time, the colonial architecture. It allowed for a raised floor effect so that the floors are more cool And you can see the roof, they're actually very steep pitch roof, with a huge overhang of the roof to allow the rain to be excluded away from the buildings.
So more than just aesthetics, there's a lot of functionality here as well.
Tribune explains that John Bidwell typically favoured the classical Renaissance style, known for its symmetry, proportion, and geometric precision, inspired by Greek and Roman principles. However, for Goodwood Park Hotel, Bidwell combined the Anglo-Indian style with classical Renaissance. He also added a third, rather curious architectural feature.
This is where the tower block is. You can see all the pediments, ornate style, influence from German ornate facades.
The tower was inspired by the medieval castles of Germany's Rhineland region, originally built for strategic defense and protection against invaders. Today, these castles are celebrated as enduring symbols of Germany's rich architectural heritage. According to Tribune, this design, inspired by German architecture, was no accident. Bidwell's clients in the late 19th century were from Germany. Who were they, and what brought them to Singapore? It turns out that the history of Goodwood Park Hotel began with a mysterious group known as the Teutonia Club.
So I'm digging into the origins of the Teutonia Club, and I find out that it started by just 7 Germans. Who are these people, and why did they get together?
German writer Sabine Hein might have some answers for me. She has called Singapore home for over 2 decades.
The first German coming to Singapore was Mr. Claudius Henry Thomson. He came 1822 to Singapore. At that time, there were high risks coming to Singapore. Due to weather conditions, there were many storms, ships must cross the waters, there were diseases here.
Sabine tells me that Henry Thomson was a missionary who braved the rough journey to spread his Christian faith on this tiny island. After Thomson, other Germans were drawn to Singapore because of its free port status and strategic location along vital shipping routes. They sought fortunes in trades like commerce and maritime operations. But homesickness was a constant.
So they started a singing society. In 1856, 7 members of the singing society founded the Teutonia Club.
Teuta means tribe, and the suffix "owns" is commonly found in names of Germanic tribes. So Teutonia simply translates to German tribe in ancient vernacular. The small choir eventually became the Teutonia Club, with activities that expanded beyond singing.
When the members grew up to 100, what was quite a lot at that time, they built the new Teutonia Club, what is now the Goodwood Park Hotel.
The German community pulled together 20,000 straight dollars for the construction costs. That's equivalent to almost 650,000 US dollars today.
The building itself was quite spectacular. Let me show you. Here it is in my book. It was one of the first buildings with electric light. At that time, it was really spectacular.
There probably weren't many buildings like that in Singapore.
In fact, the only other building illuminated with electric lighting at the time was the palace of the Sultan of Johor. I think there really was a place, a need, a desire for community amongst the Germans back then. They were really far away from home. Many of them had potentially not seen friends, relatives for years. And just having a space like that for people together to sing songs, you know, to laugh and be merry, to eat, to fellowship together, wherever we are in life, there will always be a need somewhere deep in here for a little bit of community. Apparently, the Teutonia Club became famous for throwing some of the best parties in town. What made them so legendary? And what were they really like? My search for community spaces in early 20th century Singapore has led me to Goodwood Park Hotel. I've discovered that it began as the Teutonia Club, a gathering place for the German community in Singapore. To learn more about life in the club, I'm speaking with Sabine Hein, a German writer and longtime resident here.
So, Reuben, let's start with this room. This is the old tower block.
Oh, it's lovely.
She's giving me a tour of one of the club's dining areas.
You might recognize it on this picture if you look at the windows.
Sabine explains that this area was once an open veranda. Over time, it was renovated, with windows added to transform it into an enclosed space.
What were these people doing at that time? Looks like a function.
It might be an event for something called carnival, because they had these funny hats on their heads, and this is kind of the celebration.
In the Rhineland region of Germany, the carnival tradition is also known as Fastnacht. Originally a Catholic tradition before Lent, it's a time to celebrate before the 40-day fast begins. Not only did the Germans in Singapore fashion their club after the castles of the Rhine, they also brought the spirit of the region with them in the early 1900s.
I wonder what it was like at that time. What were they drinking, eating? What were these people even talking about?
I'm sure that they drink a lot of beer and wines.
And I imagine the conversations that echoed through the space in the early 1900s would have been about everything from the Boxer Rebellion that ended in 1901 to Albert Einstein's groundbreaking formula E=mc², published in 1905. And even Paul Poiret's daring hobble skirt design in 1910.
The Germans, people say they cannot have fun, but that is really not true.
Sabine shares that in 1901, Singapore was home to 236 Germans, a small but vibrant community. From elegant dinners in grand dining rooms to tennis matches on pristine courts, they brought a touch of their homeland to life in Singapore. Their social activities extended to garden parties, afternoon tea on verandas, and leisurely cycling trips or carriage rides through the island's lush tropical scenery, blending sophistication with a sense of adventure. Sabine believes that some of the most extravagant celebrations were likely held in a room within the tower block. That's where she's taking me next.
They said it was grand. They didn't say it was this grand.
This is the heart of the tower block. You can see above this ceiling, you will find the tower. And as you can see, right and left are those wings. And in front, there is the veranda.
That's lovely.
Still there.
You know, Sabine, it feels like I've just walked into a movie set. I feel like something very covert is about to happen right now. There's so much history just surrounding us right now.
Yes, you're right. You can feel the atmosphere, I think, here best. You really can imagine how the members of the Teutonia Club are staying together, chatting, they are playing cards, they are drinking beer, they're going around all these rooms.
Sabine tells me that the Teutonia Club in the 1900s was the focal point of high society, where affluent Germans gathered. Members would arrive at the steps dressed in their finest ballroom attire, while classical melodies of Bach, Beethoven and Mozart spilled outside from the ballroom. On the veranda, some would sip drinks and engage in lively conversation. And if the guests crave a breath of fresh air or a stunning panorama, they could simply step outside.
Have a look. What a view.
It's nice and bright.
And imagine, in former times, there was only a hill, not these high buildings. So it must have been amazing, just lush greenery around.
The Teutonia Club once boasted one of the best vantage points in 20th century Singapore. From this very balcony, guests could see all the way to Malaysia.
I forgot how we were tucked away in this. I feel like we're gone back in time. And just coming out, it just reminds me that we're actually in the center of town. Orchard Road's literally right there.
Yeah. This is a guest book from the Teutonia Club, and it is starting 1902.
I would never imagine someone writing like this in this day and age.
It's a very old-fashioned. It says in German, wo man Gastfreundschaft findet und fröhliche Lieder, da sagt man gerne, wir kommen wieder. Translated, where I can find such hospitality and happy songs, you easily can say, yes, we are coming back.
Little did they know, they would never be able to return again. In 1914, the sounds of bombs in Europe silenced the music and laughter here at the Teutonia Club.
The Teutonia Club was confiscated because of World War I on the basis of the Trading with the Enemy Act. The British confiscated all belongings and properties of the Germans. So this Teutonia Club was not a German club anymore and would never be a German club in future, ever again.
My search for community spaces in early 20th century Singapore has led me to Goodwood Park Hotel, which once served as a German club. However, during World War I, many Germans in Singapore were either interned or deported, with their properties and businesses confiscated. After World War I ended in 1918, the Teutonia Club found a new purpose when three wealthy Jewish brothers, Morris, Ezekiel and Ellis Manasseh, purchased the clubhouse and transformed it into Goodwood Hall. The building regained its glamour, becoming a hub for wedding receptions, dances and concerts. One of its most celebrated moments was a performance by Anna Pavlova, one of the world's greatest ballerinas then. Over 2 enchanting nights in December 1922, she captivated audiences with her artistry and grace. It was in 1929 that the Manasseh brothers converted the hall into a full-fledged hotel, thus giving us the name we know today. But in 1942, the sound of bombs would drown out the festivities once more. This time, the explosion struck closer to home as Singapore fell to Japanese forces. What became of Goodwood Park Hotel during the Second World War? This brings to mind something Sabine showed me on our tour of Goodwood Park Hotel previously. A mysterious painting with an intriguing story she knows little about.
Seems like a very old painting.
Yeah. This painting is done by the Russian painter Vladimir Tereshkov in 1943.
Painted during World War II, the artwork features Leonora Schmidt, better known as Lenka. Sabine tells me that Lenka might have had a connection with Goodwood Park Hotel during that era. Who was Lenka? And who was this painter, Vladimir Tereshkov? What secrets does this painting hold about the building's intriguing past during the World War II era? To learn more, I'm meeting Jeffrey Say, an expert on Southeast Asian art. He explains that Tereshkov arrived in Singapore in the 1930s to work as a cartoonist for the Straits Times. He later became renowned for his portraits of Asian women. However, Tereshkov's work didn't resonate with everyone.
Critics gave him the label, King of Kitsch, right? It's a kind of, a derisive, derogatory label.
Oh.
Because by kitsch, right, in art, it's taken to refer to something that is of poor taste, sentimental, or something that has very garish colors. So he never kind of achieved that kind of critical recognition because of his style of painting. And we could see this in some of his works, where he used very lurid, garish colors. So this painting is titled Chinese Girl.
She's blue.
Yes, that's what I said, Critics call him the King of Kitsch, and you can see why. And critics they were repulsed by this painting. One of the critics called this painting one of the most unpleasant paintings produced in the 20th century.
Unlike his other widely circulated works, this captivating portrait of Lenka has remained hidden away for decades as part of Goodwood Park Hotel's personal collection.
It was never kind of publicly shown or exhibited. I think compared to his other works, which have been publicly kind of distributed, that's what makes this work interesting, is because of the kind of the mystery surrounding it.
Little is known about Lenka, except that she was an Indonesian Eurasian who lived in Singapore after the war. Her mixed heritage became a central theme and inspiration for this painting. Jeffrey explains that the painting reflected Singapore as a melting pot of ethnicities in the 1940s. Lenka's attire, a green jacket and sarong, the presence of a kris, a traditional Malay knife resting on a Bible. All these were symbols of her mixed Javanese and European heritage.
My own interpretation is that Tereshkov wanted to show that meeting of East and West. You have in the background what you call the heliconia flowering plant, kind of tropical plant. And I think he wanted to add that as a background, add to the tropical flavor of this painting.
As I dig deeper into Lenka's story, I discovered 2 letters she had written to Goodwood Park Hotel.
Here we see a letter from Lenka to Goodwood Park Hotel in 1989. Dear Sis, regarding painting Eastern Fantasy of Mr. V. Tereshkov, as I posed for that painting, I am most anxious to see it again. this painting must have had such a profound impact on her that she would want to see it again after all this time. By the looks of it, on this letter, apparently she gets to see it.
In 1989, 74-year-old Lenka came to Singapore from Holland to be reunited with the painting after 46 years. At the very end of the second letter, I finally discover Lenka's connection to Goodwood Park Hotel.
P.S. Immediately after the war, in 1946, I worked as staff captain of British war crimes in your hotel.
In the aftermath of World War II, Lenka played a pivotal role in tracking down Japanese war criminals. Her office was at Goodwood Park Hotel, which had been repurposed into a war crimes trials court. But why was a building known for its glamour and parties transformed into a court? And just who were these Japanese war criminals that were tried here? To get some answers, I'm meeting Professor Kevin Blackburn, who is a historian specializing in the Japanese occupation of Singapore. He's arranged to meet me here at the Japanese Cemetery Park.
Well, the Japanese cemetery is a good place to learn about the Japanese occupation because it has several memorials in the area designated for the Japanese military. So this is the monument to the military personnel who served during the Japanese occupation.
I can actually just make up 3 words. So Hai, which is, I think, ocean, Jin, which is soldier, and Ren, which is, I guess,
Yes.
people.
Here we see the monument to the soldiers who served in the campaign to take Singapore, both from the Navy and from the Army. The Navy's headquarters was at the Goodwood Park Hotel, hence the connection. It was more than a headquarters, actually, because it was an existing hotel. The hotel management continued.
Kevin explains that the Navy headquarters operated for 3 years until the Japanese surrendered in 1945. But that would not be Goodwood Park Hotel's last brush with the Japanese.
After the war, it becomes another military site, actually, because the British use it as a site for the war crimes investigation units that are investigating Japanese war crimes.
The British military had 17 investigation teams operating throughout Asia. The unit that worked out of Goodwood Park Hotel was Team Number 7. Each team comprised of 15 members, led by a lieutenant colonel. Civilians like Lenora Schmidt or Lenka in the painting were employed as interpreters and shorthand writers. Goodwood Park Hotel was where the groundwork was laid, the collection of evidence, tracking down of suspects, and the interviewing of witnesses. But if it served as the base for investigations, why was it also used as a war crimes trials court?
Goodwood Park was never intended to be a trial location.
I now invite the representatives of the Emperor of Japan to sign the instrument of surrender.
While uncovering Goodwood Park Hotel's history during the World War II era, I discovered that it was repurposed as a war crimes investigation unit after the war. And I've also heard that it was the site of actual war crime trials.
In this picture, we see an Allied soldier standing next to a war crime signboard with the Goodwood Park Hotel clearly visible in the background. Now, when I think of the Goodwood Park Hotel today, I think of luxury and elegance. But looking at this picture, it provides a stark contrast. And it's incredible how one place can embody both luxury and the grim realities of war. Thanks for coming.
So I think it's a really interesting picture because it also refers to the JAG's branch, which is the Judge Advocate General's office.
Dr. Chia is a lawyer with a strong research interest in the legal history of war crimes, particularly those committed during the Japanese occupation. She explains that the British JAG's office was central to addressing legal matters related to the prosecution of war crimes committed during the war. Their responsibilities included providing legal advice on case investigations, reviewing submitted evidence, and determining appropriate charges. They were also tasked with supplying personnel to serve as prosecutors in military trials. Goodwood Park Hotel also became the site of several trials, even though that wasn't the original plan.
Goodwood Park was never intended to be a trial location. However, because that was just after the war, there was much chaos, a shortage of resources, a shortage of buildings, a shortage of trial locations. And so there were at least 2 trials conducted there on the fields of the hotel under a tent, because there was just no other trial location to be found at that point of time.
In May 1946, Lieutenant Sugihara Hikaru, Chief Petty Officer Miura Mitsuyoshi, and their men were brought to trial as war criminals.
These trials concerned crimes that took place on Port Blair, which is located in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands.
Wasn't even in Singapore?
No.
The trials held in Singapore were part of the international war crimes proceedings conducted after World War II and were overseen by the Allied forces. Most of these trials took place at the former Supreme Court and Victoria Memorial Hall. Between 21st January 1946 and 12 March 1948, a total of 131 trials were conducted. Interestingly, only 22% of the trials addressed crimes committed within Singapore itself. The majority focused on atrocities carried out overseas, in places like Myanmar, Thailand, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands.
There were many atrocities committed against civilians on those islands. In the case of these 2 trials, one trial, the trial of Sugihara Akira and another, dealt with the interrogation of civilians and their torture by the Japanese defendants. And one of the defendants was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment and the other to 7 years imprisonment. In the other trial, which concerned Miura Mitsuyoshi and others, was more serious in nature because it dealt with the beating and eventual killing of civilian workers in the Andaman Nicobar Islands. And for that particular case, all defendants were sentenced to death by hanging.
Speaking to Dr. Chia on Goodwood Park Hotel has given me a completely new perspective. For a place that's associated with so much glamour, it's no longer just a beautiful building for me. It's now a building with a very powerful and complex past.
When the war crimes trials concluded in 1948, what became of Goodwood Park Hotel? Did it ever return to its former glory? After some digging, I find out that in 1947, Vivian Buff, the stepson of Ezekiel Manasseh, one of the hotel's original owners, took over the property. In the post-war years, as the world began to recover, global tourism saw a remarkable boom. According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, approximately 25 million tourists traveled internationally in 1950. By 1960, that number had more than doubled to 69 million. In Singapore, tourism also experienced significant growth, with arrivals rising from 99,000 in 1965 to 579,000 by 1970. Vivian Buff foresaw a growing demand for hotels in the region that will appeal to this emerging class of travelers. So, during the 1950s and 60s, he introduced new luxuries to the hotel. These included opulent suites and the country's very first swimming pool in a hotel. It was a bold move, cementing Goodwood Park's reputation as a trailblazer in the hospitality industry. Who was this man behind the hotel's remarkable transformation? Little is known about Vivian Bath, but I've tracked down a descendant of the Manasseh brothers, the original owners of Goodwood Park Hotel. Growing up, 33-year-old artist Chloe always knew about her family's connection to Goodwood Park Hotel. Yet, Vivian Bath remained somewhat of a mystery to her.
So I'm related to his stepfather, Ezekiel Manasseh, who is my great-granduncle. And Vivian Bath was the uncle of my grandpa.
Today, we're exploring the materials that both of us have gathered to uncover what we can about her famous grand-uncle.
Foley's romance. Pretty dancer elopes with Singapore rubber dealer, whom I assume is
Vivian.
Vivian.
Yeah.
We've come across an article about Vivian Bath's elopement with an American actress.
Mary Hay eloped over the weekend with Mr. Vivian Bath, a British rubber dealer in Singapore. The couple had only known each other for a few weeks when they travelled secretly to Greenwich, Connecticut and got married.
That sounds very romantic.
It does sound very romantic.
These articles reveal that this romantic soul spent time in New York during the 1920s. The city's hotels, known for their luxury and innovation, have been setting the bar for international hospitality since the 19th century, with amenities like private bathrooms and elevators. So it's likely that his experience there sparked his visionary idea to introduce Singapore's first swimming pool at a hotel. I'm curious to find out more about this legendary pool. However, it appears that it was removed in the late 1970s to make room for additional parking lots. 2 new pools were later added to the hotel. Luckily, 69-year-old Muhammad Hassan Syed Ismail, one of Goodwood Park Hotel's longest-serving staff, has some memories to share. He's arranged to meet me at the very spot where Vivian Bath's iconic pool once stood.
So, Mr. Hassan, at which point in time was the swimming pool here?
When I was starting here, the pool is here already in 1972. After 5 years, more than that, they demolished the thing.
Mr. Hassan explains that the pool was the heart of the hotel's activities, a lively hub where guests would gather to relax and socialize. And it wasn't just a treat for the guests.
Sometimes we do the sapna, everything. You got the stage there and the table here. This is where the place is. I was singing the time was the sapna.
That's you?
Yes.
That's you, Mr. Hassan?
Yeah.
No way.
And the room there. There's a room there.
Mr. Hassan, I think you look more handsome now.
This was 1973.
What song were you singing at this point?
Oh, this song during the 70s song.
70s?
It will waste, Santana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you sing a little bit for the camera?
You got to change your ways, baby. That's
man. I'm just going to have a private session after this, so don't mind us.
Mr. Hassan recalls the vibrant 60s and 70s, a golden era when Goodwood Park Hotel became a magnet for visiting celebrities.
I met Muhammad Ali, came here to the poolside here, just behind us here.
Wow, okay.
And even the Cliff Fisher. Then I met Kitaro. This place used to be a function room, and you hold about wedding and the meeting for the guests. I met Jackie Chan here.
Jackie Chan?
Yes.
Here? In this room?
He came in the midnight and have a supper.
Wow.
Goodwood Park Hotel wasn't just a retreat for celebrities, it was also a much sought-after filming location. As seen in this 1967 Hollywood production about a young woman who travels the world for the first time. The pool featured was one of the 2 new pools constructed later. Over the years, Goodwood Park Hotel has evolved with the times. But one thing has remained unchanged since the early 1900s. this iconic tower, standing witness to grand celebrations, the trials of war, and its transformation into a world-class hotel. While everyone can witness its grandeur from the outside, few have seen what lies within. The tower is currently above the Rosemary Suite, which Sabine took me through previously. This is the only place you can access the tower. In the last 125 years, only a select few have gone in. Today, Radhakrishnan, the hotel's chief engineer, has granted me special permission to explore what lies within. And the only way to get in is through this hatch.
You see?
Yeah.
So you put there.
I don't know why, but I was expecting a rope ladder coming down. For some weird reason, I thought a rope was going to fall down. Apparently, it looks very sturdy, so...
Until touch the floor, okay. Slowly.
Okay.
I go first,
Yes, sir.
then you can follow me.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Step very slowly. No need to hurry.
We have to be extremely careful as we are climbing into a structure that is over a century old.
So I'm going to try and make my way up there. I'm not sure I'm going to do this with one hand once more, but let's try. Try climbing a ladder in the middle of a room which has probably like 6-meter ceilings while holding an Osmo. This is not the easiest thing to do. You notice how high the ceilings are, but I think from up here you really realize that if you drop, it's not going to be very pleasant. A little bit shaky, huh?
Finally, I'm inside this tower that has been here since 1900.
Oh, look at that. It's amazing.
It's a lot bigger. I mean, I know that it's a tower, but it's a lot bigger than what I expected it to be. Somehow, it just feels like there's a really big open space.
Radha explains that throughout the hotel's history, the tower was left vacant.
Inside need to make an empty space to the heat dissipation.
Oh.
Because this building is exposed to the sun, right? So it's more hot here.
So it's not just aesthetics, it's also functional, right?
Yes.
You know, when you look at this hotel today, it's very easy to forget how rich a history the Goodwood has had.
Yes.
So I think as in having this tower right here, it's just a reminder of what this place has been through all these years. So this tower has pretty much been locked up for years. And the fact that I was able to access it, I think it's definitely one of the beautiful things about discovering hidden places. Going back in time, it's not just a place that's locked away, it's not just a place that's hidden.
My journey to uncover the history of Goodwood Park Hotel began with the German community in the 1900s, who built it as a hub for their social activities. So much has happened to the hotel since then that few people remember or know about Goodwood Park's German heritage. If the Teutonia Club was still around today, what would it be like? I'm joining in the activities of the German Association, a contemporary version of the historic Teutonia Club.
Hey guys!
Hi!
Christina,
Nice
Reuben,
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Reuben.
Hey,
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Of
Looks
course,
good.
have a seat.
Thank you.
To me, it's always also a little bit filled with pride to be one of the countries that were there for good times, for parties, for other show looked at it and say, hey, can we join you guys? This is what we're trying now with German Association, even today, to bring across as a community builder, as an enabler, even into today's world with our today's communication and social media and websites and all that we have. But the core, the roots is still very much similar than back then.
There's nothing that beats a physical presence.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
really like physical home away from home.
Exactly. And that is why we offer so many physical interactions, round tables or regular tables, let it be coffee mornings, lunches, gatherings like here today in the East Coast Park.
heute alle gekommen seid zu unserem GH Community Event. Es ist schön, euch auch so zahlreich zu sehen, weil wir haben, toi toi toi, das Wetter hält noch, euch gehofft, dass wir uns hier einfach einmal alle zusammentreffen, uns gegenseitig kennenlernen, die Chance nutzen, gemeinsam die 2 Stunden gemeinsam hier zu verbringen.
So even though the German Association doesn't have a building today like the Teutonia Club did, some things still remain the same. You know, the stories, the interactions, the need for human connection, not a single bit of that has changed.
After the ruins are explored and the stories are uncovered, it's clear that these places are more than just brick and mortar. They carry dreams that were built and lost.
It's very emotional, actually. I feel like I'm being transported little bit by little bit.
They reveal struggles endured and moments that shaped our past.
This painting actually changed the destiny of Singapore.
These structures remind us of our beginnings. They're not just places from the past, they are a part of who we are, shaping our identity and inspiring our journey ahead.